Hi, I'm Dan Leonard in the East.
And I'm George Whittam in the West.
And together we still are East-West Audio Body Shop. Well, last week we had a great roundtable discussion on pay-to-play networks and rates, and we had a great panel of experts who are very experienced at voiceover. This week, somebody who's very experienced at pay-to-plays and very experienced at voiceover, J. Michael Collins will be joining us, along with Bev Standing and David Kaplan, a little less experienced, but also very successful with pay-to-plays. And we also have a very special guest who you do not want to miss. That's East-West Audio Body Shop. We'll see all of you there.
He is the home voiceover studio engineer to the stars in Los Angeles, California. A Virginia Tech grad whose knowledge of the latest recording gear is second to none. He is a voice actor and the home studio master. Hailing from Buffalo, New York, his home studio skills and knowledge of home studio recording are unmatched. When Dan and George talk shop, people listen. And the talk continues tonight. Welcome to East-West Audio Body Shop. This episode of East-West Audio Body Shop is brought to you by Edge Studios, providers of voiceover education, production, and technology. Harlan Hogan's Voiceover Essentials, products hand-picked for voice actors. The Home Studio Master, get a handle on your personal voiceover studio. And VoiceOver Extra, your one-stop resource for voiceover success. And now, live from his high-tech facility in Santa Monica and his soon-to-be former penthouse studio in Buffalo, here are George Whittam and Dan Leonard.
Good evening. I'm Dan Leonard, still in the East.
And I'm George Whittam in the West.
And together we still are East-West Audio Body Shop. Well, for the time being, anyway. Lots of big changes coming to this show in about 2 months. You know, that the time is like ticking down. Cannot wait to get out, out to the West. My brain is already out there.
Yeah.
I mean, completely, it's like my body is still here and, it really needs its brain most of the time. So sometimes I'm a tad distracted, but the preparation is underway to move the show out west completely, where we will no longer be the East-West Audio Body Shop, but we will be the voiceover body shop, and doing it from one location and having a great time doing it, because we have all these great people that live in the valley that will be able to ride their bike over to do the show, which will be kind of cool.
Yeah, because everybody in the valley rides their bike. Just so you know, it's a big bike. No, just kidding about that. No, but we're going to be in the studio zone, which is awesome. I mean, the Studio City area studio zone, which is really where all the voiceover work, most of it is being produced, I think, most of the time.
Right, and where a lot of the people live. So, they can actually come over and have lunch. It'll be kind of cool. But that's coming up. And so we have a couple more shows to do, the last of EWABS, all of the episodes will become collector's items. And then we're going to take a good deal of July off. Actually, most of July. We're going to do our last show, I believe, on July 6th. I think. Mm-hmm. And then
more on that at the end of the show. We got notes all about all this stuff.
Yes, we'll talk about those sorts of things. But anyway, on to tonight's festivities, such as they are. It's a heavy but important topic. Why did we leave the word heavy in there? We'll be covering rates.
Heavy duty, dude. Heavy duty, man.
Heavy duty, yeah. We'll cover rates and online casting tonight with a distinguished roundtable, the sequel.
That's right.
Anyway, counterpoint to last week's, what some people thought was a largely anti-online casting panel. And, I did not find that to really be the case. I think it's important to note.
That's a really cool sound, whoever's doing that.
Yeah. JS is on there. That's twice.
JS. Buddy. Anyway, I killed it.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to be talking about that sort of stuff tonight. A little bit more about, what does it take to really succeed on the pay-to-play sites? And we have a great panel with us tonight that's going to talk about their success in the business. And we'll lead off. We'll go around the horn here. We'll start off. Joining us from Luxembourg, someone who's been with us before, a great friend of ours, who's actually been crazy enough to actually ride in the back seat of a car that I've been driving. J. Michael Collins.
I know the picture is up there on the EWABS homepage, and you got Doug Torkel hiding to the side. The two of you. It's a pleasure to be back. I'm very, very happy to be alive after that experience, and looking forward to talking about online casting tonight.
Right, and that was before the party. So
that was before the party.
All right. Joining us from New York, a good friend of mine, a guy who's done very well with the pay-to-plays, and just an all-around great voice actor, and I like his hair a whole lot. David Kaplan.
Gee, if you didn't mention the hair part, I never would have known you were talking about me.
I know.
But I'm thrilled to be here this evening, guys, especially after last week. And it's interesting because I fell asleep during last week's show. No offense. It was a long day in the studio, but my wife heard the rest of the show. And in the morning at breakfast, she said, you need to be on that show. And then lo and behold, that email showed up, which was pretty funny. So I am thrilled to be here and discuss the success that I have and what it takes to get it done. It's going to be an awesome show tonight. I'm psyched.
All right. And joining us from just north of Toronto, Canada, someone who is just dynamite at the slots, by the way. Bev Standing. If you're ever in Vegas with Bev, just watch her. She's like, this one will work. This one will do fine. And it's just ka-ching, 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 ka-ching. Bev
You
Standing.
were my lucky charm.
You had a bunch of lucky charms with you that night. One night we were all together at WovoCon, and we just decided to go do the strip, and we just started following Bev around from machine to machine, and just coins just kept coming out of it. It was pretty impressive. Anyway, you're doing very well with the pay-to-plays as well, and you haven't been doing it for a whole lot of time. So we'll be interested to hear what goes on with that. And then joining us from South San Francisco, where the Golden State Warriors are still trying to do it after so many years. He's got his Golden State Warriors shirt on.
Warriors.
One of our favorite humans in the business, J.S. Gilbert.
Hello, everyone. I'm on my iPad because my MacBook Pro is not working properly. Do I sound okay? Can you hear me?
Yeah, just don't project so much. Pretend you're talking into a fine electret microphone.
Okay.
There you go.
So, I just talked my way on the show. I really don't have anything to say about pay-to-plays. I've always wanted to be like the Secret Square.
Just speak at a low level of voice, because that sucker's got a massive amount of gain on it.
Yeah, use your indoor voice.
My indoor. Okay, how's this?
Perfect.
That's good. That's good. All right. Anyway, so on to tonight's topic tonight. And of course, if anybody has some questions in the chat room and has something to say, which I would find unfathomable that somebody in the chat room would have something to say, feel free to join in. And our marvelous chat room monitor, Anthony Gettig, will be in there, and he will escort you to the aisle. Anyway, let's start.
Hopefully, we're not going off the air as I watch the colorful spinning pinwheel on my screen right now. So,
oh goodness!
If we do, I apologize in advance for going off the air.
Do you guys mind if I do a little water?
Not at all. Just extend your Wi-Fi network a little bit more to your yard, because you're.
Yeah, I figured he's probably heading to his hot tub.
Yeah, I'm going to cut his mic. Okay.
Okay. All right. Let's start off with Bevy, because she's the lady, and ladies first. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into voiceover and how the pay-to-play networks have worked for you.
Well, hi first to everybody, and thanks for having me. It started in 2008. I needed something to do during a tough time, and I discovered a voiceover workshop. So I took it, and while I was there, the rest of my life didn't exist. So I continued to do things. And I took some improv and I took some more workshops and I took some acting. And somebody said, I think it might have been someone at Second City, said, you can get jobs doing this. So I had a demo done through Pirate Radio in downtown Toronto. And oddly enough, a friend of mine who had sent me a link. So we're now into 2010. And she sent me a link saying, this guy's going to contact you for an audition. So I had a little handheld thing. It was about the size of 2 pens. And I recorded the 10 words they wanted me to say, and I sent it to them. And they came back with, I don't mean to, be critical, but it sounds like there's something wrong with your equipment. Sounds like you're talking into a phone. So I went to a store and I bought a microphone, and I don't know what they're called. I'm technically not bright with a memory of no names. It's a little half circle that goes around your mic and you put it on a stand.
Reflexion filter.
Yes. And I put a pillow on top of that and a blanket underneath. And I had heard about voices.com. So I joined up for $9.99 or free month or whatever. And within 2.5 weeks, I got my first job.
One of these things.
Yeah, something similar to that.
Yeah, okay. It was probably a mud flip. Just happened to have one sitting in. When you're cleaning up a studio, things just sort of like come out from behind the walls. And anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, so I got a job. So it just continued from there. I just kept getting work. So then I joined other online sites and went to more workshops and met more people and learned more things and went to conferences and kept learning.
Now, do you get most of your work off the casting sites?
I wouldn't say most. I'm still probably 40, maybe 50% of it. A lot of repeat clients from the websites, all of them. And some of them are repeat clients. They go directly through those same sites to come to me. But yeah, at least half my work now from there.
Okay, fabulous. All right. Let's move on to David Kaplan, who I've known for a few years and has been doing very well at it. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the business.
Well, I started at age 6. Of course, I wasn't really in the business at age 6 because there was no business to speak of back then. I'm kind of old. You'd never know to look at me. But I discovered my voice at age 6 when my dad brought home a cassette recorder. This was new technology at the time, and it was the coolest thing I'd ever gotten my hands on before. So I embraced that technology immediately. I had a blast sliding it under places to record conversations. Exactly. Yeah. I actually have mine here, but
you show them this one, George. This is what happens when you start cleaning up your studio. Things just start showing up.
That's a beaut right there. I think I recorded my first voiceover on.
Wait till I talk about the toilet seat I threw out last week. You'll be holding one of those up too. But in any case, so I started playing with my voice at a very young age, and I never took voice acting seriously. There was no internet, of course. And I ended up majoring in communications, television, radio in college, and was hired by CBS right out of school, and eventually ended up in sports programming as a director. During that time period, now there's still no internet, believe it or not. And what would happen was we had to have a staff announcer available every evening so that when there were changes in the schedule based on who won what games, especially since we had the NHL contract back then, it was important that the announcer was there to update what the next game was that was coming up. On occasion, there was nobody. So the assistant director would say to me, "Why don't you go do it?" I said, "No, I'm busy directing." He goes, no, you throw in the booth. I'll cover you for a few minutes. And they would pay me $50 anytime I went into the booth for the evening in addition to my regular duties. And I thought I was the king of the world because I was buying beer for everybody after the game, and it was phenomenal. But I never took my voice seriously until the day Don LaFontaine passed away. And at that point, something clicked in me. And I said, you know what? I think I can do this full time and actually make a living at it. And I did it part-time for years and years and years and years as the internet came into being and the online casting sites finally arrived. It was all a matter of timing. And it's only 4 years ago that I said, I'm now going to be a full-time VO. And wow, what a difference. Lifestyle, income, everything. And I owe a tremendous amount of that to Pay to Play, to giving me a place, a platform to really start getting introduced to this business. And when I look now at the roster of the things that I've done and the regular client work that I have, it's mind-boggling in a 4-year period of time to amass that. And it's really due to pay-to-plays.
All righty. Absolutely. J. Michael Collins, man about the world.
I started this morning in Dublin, went to London for lunch, and now I'm back in Luxembourg. And I've been going since about 6:30 Dublin time this morning. Good evening, everybody. Well,
now you've been a big proponent of the pay to play. Certainly, it has worked for you. But tell us a little bit how you've worked the pay to plays and how it works into your business strategy.
Well, I think a lot of people know my story already, and I came into pay to play online casting after already being in the business for about 14 years full time. This is all I've ever done in my life, and I found these sites, I guess maybe about 7 years ago now. And so, well, this is interesting. And, I had never done my own audio editing, my own production. I was the monkey behind the microphone. That's what I always called myself. And, I'd go into a studio when I was called, an agency job, whatever it might be. And that's how I made my living. And it was a decent living. And then I found these online casting sites, and, the first 6 months, a little slow going, especially as I learned the tech side. But after that, it was like a steamroller. And I realized, first and foremost, the more you get heard, assuming the talent level's there and the acoustics are there, the more you're going to book, the more auditions you do. David Kaplan can attest to that. The more you're going to book. And at the end of the day, what I realized were these sites were tremendous platforms, to take your career to the next level if you're already established, or to build a career if you're not. And, I think we've seen people come from both sides of that. But one of the things that's important to me is, the whole debate about pay to play, and this has been going on for a while now. We can talk about individual sites. We can talk about things going on within the pay-to-play field, and I prefer the term online casting because some sites are pay-to-play, some sites are not. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what we call it. It doesn't really matter whether we like it or not, because what we are as voiceover artists or voice talent, whatever we want to call ourselves, at the end of the day, we're freelancers. And if you look at every other major freelance business in the world, they have all gone to a model where the work is being aggregated, usually through one large site, in a couple of cases, 2 or 3 different sites, but in most cases, 1 or 2 large sites. That's coming to our industry, whether we like it or not. 5 or 10 years from now, the vast majority, certainly of non-union work, and I would be willing to bet a good deal of union work as well, is going to be cast through large online clearinghouses. And whether that's voices.com, which has a big structural advantage, whether it's 123, which seems to be laying in the weeds, whether it's wovo.biz, where the heart's in the right place. We don't know the answer to that yet. We don't know who it's going to be, but it's going to be there. And what we need to do as an industry now, and I think that's where we got into the debate so much last week, is we need to preserve our control over rates and over how we're marketed, and make sure that when that 800-pound gorilla does exist at some point in the future, that we're still the ones who are deciding what we get paid at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Now, someone who has never been lack of opinion on this, joining us again from San Francisco, the one and only J.S. Gilbert. You can unmute his microphone there, George. If you can, there we go. Now we're having some minor technical difficulties. Is everything working right now?
I think so. I've switched to the iPad. I'm trying to speak softly and not have my thumb go in front of me.
Yeah. Now you started in this business long before, I think the invention of radio, if I'm not mistaken, but.
I was working as an agency creative, mostly actually contracting to agencies as a copywriter. Did a variety of things. I worked on retail accounts and communications accounts, tech accounts, car accounts. And so I would write this stuff, and I would direct voice talent, and I would work on the casting of voice talent. And it was always stuff that was done either in the Bay Area or occasionally in Los Angeles and a professional studio. And I was the director or assistant director or whatever. And one day we went to record something, and the talent was very not feeling well, and this is maybe 27 years ago, and we were stuck. It was actually recording at a radio station, and there was no time, there was nobody to do it. So the recording engineer said, "Why don't you give it a shot?" And I did. I went back to the people I was doing this for. It was pretty funny. It was for one of those listener lines, like Saturday, October 25th at the Arco Arena. It's the Allman Brothers. Yeah. And that's what I would write and produce every week. And I wound up being the voice for it. And then 6 months later, somebody hunted me down through the radio station. And before you knew it, I was a voice talent. And I have to say, in those days, it was rather tricky. And the fact that I didn't actually work for ad agencies was my saving grace, because many of the ad agencies essentially had rules that if you worked for them, you couldn't be talent. And there were a lot of reasons for it. Hal Riney, who many of you might know, was Hal Riney and Partners, a very big ad agency in San Francisco. He sort of broke the rule. He not only did voiceover for some of their own clients, but he also did voiceover for other ad agencies as well. Country Time Lemonade was a big one. So that's my story. Shortly after doing it, I joined SAG. I joined AFTRA. I had regular gigs. I've been the voice of Chevy trucks for the state of Texas and Oklahoma. I've done national spots for Coca-Cola, for McDonald's, for most of the car companies. I'm currently the voice of Clorox bathroom cleaners. I'm the licensed voice for Hermie from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Papa Smurf, a number of other characters, Scooby-Doo, Shaggy, so on and so forth. So, my introduction to pay-to-plays, I hate that term, but I do understand, because there are online casting services that don't charge a fee for people to be on. I suppose that is the best way to describe what we're talking about. Voices.com, before it was Voices.com, was Interactive Voices. I was one of the first people to ever have a website in terms of voiceover. And they approached me. They gave me a free membership. And the first month, actually the second thing I auditioned for was a union spot for Japan Airlines' 50th anniversary. And that paid me, I think it was around $18,000. So I kind of had a little allegiance to them for a while. And then when Voice 123 started, I at that point was doing casting online, and so I used both Interactive Voices and Voice 123 to cast talent. And I can tell you, it is not the pay to plays that were marginalizing the talent, because I would consistently go to hire talent, for local little spots for $250, $300. And I'd hate to say, but some of the people that we knew back on the Savvy line, and maybe some that are actually going to watch this, were writing me back with their auditions saying they would do it for $100. So, what I look at as far as the pay-to-plays are concerned is they are one more tool. That's really what it is. We're in a very, very tough time right now where voiceover is being commoditized and marginalized. And like J. Michael Collins said, this is something that's happening with every business you can think of, pretty much. The guy who started the Mint.com, which sold it to Intuit, he just started a company called Fountain.com. This is professional plumbers, carpenters, people in the medical profession, so on and so forth, that have 2 minutes to respond to an inquiry asking for them for their professional opinion. And the person asking for that opinion pays $7 for 15 minutes, of which the professional gets 70% or $4.90. So don't think that we are alone at all. I'm also a freelance writer. And when I write articles for magazines, I am paid the same thing I am paid now that I was 25 years ago. And they make you think that you're lucky to get the work. And I can tell you a lot of copywriters that I know are looking at this. Designers, I can go out and I can have logos designed for $5 or $10. This is what's happening. And it is the reality. I don't know what's going to break the cycles. And I'll tell you something, I'm very good at pointing my finger at the problems and not so great at coming up with solutions. But personally, I was the guy who made shitloads of money at this business, working very little. We'd roll out of bed. We'd go to our agent. Well, before going to our agents, we used to go to the ad agencies, the clients and stuff. I worked 2 hours a week and I made enough money to buy a condo every year if I wanted to. That was what this business was like. 25 years ago, I tell somebody I did voiceover. They said, what's that? 15 years ago, I said to people I did voiceover. They said, oh, you mean like Mrs. Doubtfire? 10 years ago, I talked to people. I said, I did voiceover. They said, oh, I know somebody who does that. And then 5 years ago, I would say, I do voiceover. And the other person would say, so do I. And that is perhaps the major thing that's wrong with this business right now. It is not the pay to place or anything like that. But if you look and you see one of the things that really affects what people get paid, it is called scarcity. And there is no scarcity in this business. And because we're getting to a point now where everybody can do this work, the bar is being lowered. If you got the truth from all the top talent agents, they would tell you that there is a large percentage of people at the top end of the pyramid doing this work, doing SAG, regionals, and nationals and stuff. And they work for ad agencies. They work for the clients. They work for the production companies. And I'll tell you one last little story and then let it get back to the group. I was doing a gig at a studio in California. I won't say more than that. And I was pretty much done with my gig. There was a ruckus going on. And I said, what's going on? And they said, talent's not showing up. And the client's freaking out because it has to be traffic, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, maybe I can go in there and talk to them. They said, wait here, we'll let them know. So about 7-8 minutes go by and they come back and they say, that's okay, JS, they got it taken care of. So me, being the a-hole that I am, I actually went into the studio, walked right into the studio where I knew this was being an issue, opened up the door, saw all the clients sitting there and said, hey, I heard you guys had a problem that your talent didn't show up. I'm a pretty good mimic, pretty good mime. Maybe I could sound like him. And they said, oh, no, we have it taken care of. And I looked, and you could see through the glass by the microphone was one of the audio engineers that worked for this professional studio. I said, oh, your talent is on their way, knowing full well what was going on. They said, oh, no, that's our talent. I said, really? He's an engineer. Oh, yeah. All the audio engineers in that place have SAG-AFTRA cards. Every last one of them. And they will do everything they can in their power to get every little bit of work that they can. Yeah. And all the people, I had a woman who's working at a major ad agency contact me here in San Francisco and say, they told me to call you. I have no experience acting or doing voiceover, but apparently everybody at the ad agency does. And we all get to be in all the projects. And this is the top end of that pyramid.
Yeah. Well, the business certainly has changed a lot. We're gonna talk a little bit more about that in just a couple of minutes. We do have to do a little bit of a shutdown here. We got a lot of people watching. Do not go anywhere. We will be right back. George just has to put the tie around the outboard and give it another yank to get everything running again here. But we'll be right back after a short break, and we'll continue the conversation. So take it away, Professor Whittam.
Yes, I am force quitting Wirecast, and which is not responding, but amazingly still streaming the show. So we'll be right back, everybody.
Wow.
Are you confused about how to set up and maintain a professional quality voiceover studio? No wonder. The information out there is mostly mythology. This is the best microphone to use. You have to have a preamp. You need a soundproof booth. This software is the best. Your audio must be broadcast quality. Consult with someone who knows the truth, someone who's been there, in the trenches, doing voiceover for over 30 years. Someone with unparalleled experience with voiceover studios, who's worked with hundreds of voice actors and designed hundreds of personal studios. He knows how to teach and cares about your success in one of the harshest environments known to voiceover, your home. Dan Leonard, the Home Studio Master. Separate myth from fact and get a handle on your personal voiceover studio. Contact the Home Studio Master at homevoiceoverstudio.com. Drop off a specimen of your dry audio for a free analysis.
You're listening to East West Audio Body Shop.
And now, back to East West Audio Body Shop, where every week it's Apollo 13.
And this week...
Wow, that was some good fish.
And we're back here at East West Audio Body Shop. Thanks for sticking with us while we had a little technical difficulty, but it hardly ever happens anymore, George. I mean, we've been blessed over the last 100 episodes or so where things just seem to be working.
Every time you try to improve things, well, along the way you break them. So
but hopefully we'll be content and working the rest of the way here.
Yeah.
But while we have a chance, we have to mention someone who's been sponsoring us for a long time, 191 episodes, is it?
Years.
190 years.
Hogan. Yes. Harlan Hogan at voiceoveressentials.com, who has all the voiceover stuff that you could possibly ever use in an entire career of voiceover. And he has it in one site, and it's real easy to get there and buy stuff, and he guarantees his stuff. And it's good prices, but it's the cool stuff that he has. I mean, we know about some of the things that he's invented, like the Portabooth Pro and the Portabooth Plus, and the
adjustable boom strap.
The adjustable boom strap that will make sure that your boom doesn't fall over.
Or boom stop. I'm sorry, I got the name wrong.
Stop.
Adjustable boom stop. Sorry about that.
But it's a strap. So why not just call it a boom strap? Anyway, you should all have one whether you need one or not, just for the conversation piece.
That's right.
So go on over to voiceoveressentials.com and
booms are sagging. You need to go on over to voiceoveressentials.com.
Can a boom strap replace a belt? I mean, that might hold his belly up a little bit better, but
it's all the adjustments that this thing has that makes it so incredibly unique. I think we've probably helped Harlan move a lot of ABSs, and that doesn't stand for anti-braking system. It prevents your microphone from getting broke. You know how many microphones I've broken because the boom fell over?
That's why he came up with this thing. He was getting the occasional microphone return with a dented, smashed grill. And when he'd find out why the mic fell over, the guy would say, "Yeah, the boom sagged over and it fell over and boom." And that's when Harlan came up with the idea. And boom.
That was the death knell for Franken Mike several times.
Mm-hmm.
Who's been glued back together a few times.
But you're using the ABS now, right, Dan?
I am using an ABS now, which is why things are staying nice and stable. So go on over to voiceoveressentials.com and buy an ABS and a boom strap or whatever it is they're calling it. It's the ABS, and it's over at voiceoveressentials.com, and only Harlan Hogan at voiceoveressentials.com has them. So go over there, go to the bottom of the page, and wow, an actual video there. That's actually kind of cool. Go down to the bottom of our EWABS page here and click on Harlan's picture talking into his Portabooth, and it will take you right there. So thank you, Harlan, for being with us for 191 episodes, 4.5 years. It's amazing.
Thanks, Harlan. All right, I'm muting everybody else again.
Somebody using a vacuum cleaner? What's going on there? Okay,
I don't know. I've muted everybody.
Okay. Anyway, so let's continue the conversation here. JS was talking about the scarcity in our marketplace. J. Michael Collins, you had some thoughts on that? We need to unmute him.
Unmuting him. There we go.
Okay, we go.
Yep.
You're on.
Okay, you're faster than I am. Yeah, and I think it's a little illustrative of the difference between the current online casting world and maybe the way things are out in California and in the studios out there, where everybody is clamoring for every different penny. I can tell you, I have the opposite experience, which is that talent is a scarce thing. Quality talent is a scarce thing. If you cast a job off of voices.com or Voice123, which I do with some frequency, you will quickly discover that about 80% of the submissions are not viable, either for reasons of audio quality, editing, technical reasons, or simply because they just can't perform. And at the end of the day, I found myself often having trouble casting a job off of pay-to-play sites. Usually I can find someone. But the amount of people who can do this job very, very well in the United States and around the world, I think it's actually quite limited. I think you have maybe 5,000 or 10,000 talent at most who can perform this job from home, who can develop a quality studio, and who have the talent level to be able to be competitive enough to name their rates if they want to. So there may be a lot of people out there fighting over scraps, and that's why we see a lot of low-end sites popping up for $5 or $30 or your voice bunnies and kittens and donkeys and whatever else you've got out there these days. But at the end of the day, I know that David Kaplan can name his rates on voices.com or Voice123. I can name mine. I know Bev is finding out that she can name hers. And that applies to at least a couple dozen talents that I can think of off the top of my head. I don't think that there is the undercutting and the mad rush of talent into this business that everybody seems to be talking about these days. I haven't seen it, at least in terms of real quality.
David, what do you think?
I agree with that. It's I used to be that guy that would audition for everything, and I always try to be the right price. But I've recently gotten to that point where the reality is people are willing to pay my price for my services. And if they ever give me a little pushback on price, I'm like, look, I'm not here to be the cheapest. I'm here to be the best. If you want to work with one of the best, you'll work with me. If not, have a nice day. And very often when I put them in that situation, they come running back to me. Oh, yeah, we really want to work with you, because they realize what else is out there. So what J. Michael talks about, we hear time and time again. I actually had, very recently, as a matter of fact, a job on 123 where I had asked the client to send me my original audio. And oops, they sent me everybody's audio that had submitted for that particular job. I said, well, it's on my screen. I might as well give it a listen. And that's because I never am in the position of casting. So I don't know what else is really out there. And I sat there for a few minutes and I just shook my head in complete disbelief of how poor some of the audio quality was, some of the delivery was. You talk about the ability to perform. There's no blue pill you can take that's going to make you perform better when it comes to VO. You've got to get better. It's a great place to start. What's happening for me over the years is the regular client base that comes back. I have one client, I found them on Craigslist 2.5, 3 years ago. They send me work every single day. Hello. And, then I had another client last week who all of a sudden decided, hey, we're going to give you a raise. I didn't ask for a raise, but they're one of my regular clients. It's scientific work. They come back every week for something. And after a terrific experience they've had with excellent sound quality, the ability to read well, fast turnaround time, but not ridiculous, they realize I'm just the guy after a year. So they want to stick with me. Great. We're going to give you a raise. Super. And it's funny. It got even busier right after I got the raise, and then it's been kind of quiet these past couple of weeks with them. But either way, I've gotten to that position where I don't do every single audition. You guys have seen my face now since we started this evening. I haven't moved away to go do an audition. And
the angels sing on high.
Because for those of you that have spent time with me, you know that, hey, where'd Dave go? Oh, he must be doing an audition. Most normal people, they assume, this guy got up from the dinner table. He must have gone to the restroom or something. In my case, it's always, well, he went to do an audition. Because, hey, look, like I've always said, the more you throw at the wall, the more it's going to stick. And that's not my saying. It's been around forever. I'm not the best looking. We all know that. I'm not the best voice talent. That numbers game is a real thing. If they ask for a certain accent, I think I can come close. Hey, I'll give it a shot. I had somebody just this morning ask me if I was really from BC, British Columbia, because I auditioned for something where they want a gentleman who's a guy next door from BC. And well, hey, look, not BC, NYC, okay, America. But I said, better to do it and be honest with the client, because if they can't find somebody who you see, they're going to come to me anyway. So it's about putting yourself out there. And I forgot what the original question was, because that's what happens.
We can get the rates that we ask for if we hold to them. I mean, Matt Kalrick made this point last week, and it was a really good point, which is that pay-to-play sites don't drive rates down. Talent drive rates down. And, I've actually come to the point where I have people come to me every single week. Can you listen to this demo? Can you listen to this audition? Can you tell me what you think? Give me some feedback. And I'm always happy with a newbie to spend 5 minutes of my time here and there to give them a little feedback. I think that's something we should all do, is give back a little bit in this business. But, I hear enough of them that I think, even if you have 7 people tell you that maybe this isn't right for you and that maybe an investment isn't a good idea in this business, they're still going to go forward. And they're going to wind up on places like Fiverr, and they're going to wind up on some of the very discount sites out there, $30 a holler sites. And maybe at the end of the day, that's not such a horrible thing. Maybe there's a place for that in this business where you have certain levels of quality. But what I do know is that the cream will rise to the top. And, if serious professionals, if people who are well-trained and experienced and who do this job well and who are confident in what they're producing, hold the line on their rates, set a reasonable standard minimum, whether it's a SAG-AFTRA rate card or whether it's a non-union rate card you found somewhere, and whatever it may be, follow your own moral compass. But if we hold to that, if we maintain the line, the quality talent out there, we will always be able to get what we're worth. And whether you're brand new to this business or you've been doing it for 20 years, if you have the ability, that's there for you. And it's up to us. It's up to us, because if we start chasing every little thing out of fear, then it will collapse around us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And J. Michael, you just real quick here, you had a story last week. And I know a few of us have had stories like this where somebody has posted a rate for a job and it's way low, yet you'll go ahead and do that audition and post what the job really should be paying and still book it. Because sometimes the people who are out there posting a dollar amount, they really don't know. They're just throwing something.
I had a very interesting experience on Voice 123. I didn't actually book the job. I was shortlisted for it. But it was a national commercial, and right off the top of my head, I now forget what the brand was. I think I told you, David. But they had posted it $100 to $200. And I happened to glance at it, because sometimes what I'll do if I see a low budget job on one of these sites is I'll send in a canned demo with my minimum, which is $250. And if they're interested, maybe they'll come back. If not, it took me 30 seconds of my time. But I looked at the job, I looked what it was, and I said, well, this just doesn't make sense. So I went ahead and I did the audition, and I submitted what the appropriate rate would be, which was about 20 times what they had posted for a limited national run. And then I also added cycle rates to that because when I do broadcast work, if it's national or regional, especially if it's a major brand, I take the SAG-AFTRA card, and that's my starting point, even though I'm a non-union talent. And they got back to me fairly shortly thereafter, and they said, "Oh, we like it a lot. You didn't do the whole thing. Can you give us a couple of more lines?" And I said, "Well, what about the rate?" And they said, "Well, we just threw that up there. We figure people would bid what they're worth, and the people so the 5 or 6 people we've shortlisted were all fairly high bids. So sometimes we assume that they know what they're doing, or that there's a plan or some evil plot to lowball us. And if you actually ask for what you're worth, you just might get it."
Yeah. And sometimes they say, well, we can't afford that. But most of the time, they'll usually call back. And it's, how many times has that happened? It's like, always be prepared to say no. Like, you're in a sword fight, you got to be willing to die. You got to you've got to take that chance and say, hey, look, this is what I'm worth. And if you're not willing to pay that, then we're not the right match.
If you're doing this full time and you haven't turned down a job this week, you're not charging enough.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
My big line is always, price is only an issue in the absence of value. you got to think about that and wrap your brain around it. And the reality is when people kind of hear that, they're like, oh, it's like, do you want the best or you want the cheapest? You want the cheapest? There's a site out there called Fiverr. Not to kick them, but I just did.
For $5, you can kick it 5 times.
I'll kick you for $5.
Shouldn't it be called like 50 Fiverr or 105 or 95? Because it is all of the work on there $5?
No, I believe they can add things onto it. That's what I've been told is you can click something and add charges for this or that. But still, I mean, it's the association. I think there was an article posted recently. I think it was Terry Daniel talking about how there are production companies out there that actually have a blacklist. They'll use people on Fiverr for spec work and then make sure they don't go and hire them. If you're associating yourself with something that diminishes the value perception that clients have of your product, whether that's Fiverr or a site advertising cheap this or that, it's going to harm your product at the end of your brand at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And you're going to have a hard time asking for more.
That's the brand thing. That's the problem. Anything that associates with your brand that in any way construes that you're an amateur that's not good. Not good.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's consider this one for a second. One of the things that some of the sites offer is a premium membership. It's an interesting concept. The idea of buying placement as opposed to just being better than everybody. Bev, you want to start on that one? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I was pretty excited actually when I was approached and asked to be a platinum member on one of the sites. And I thought, wow, that's a lot of money. I don't know.
We'll wait for the
and talked to them. It was voices.com and they said, oh, we've got this site. I know, it's me. It's my bandwidth, I think.
You're okay.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
At all?
Buffered. You caught up.
Okay. It keeps coming and going. Okay. Well, I was voices.com and they had 6 or 7 different sites, commercialvoices.com and radiovoices.com. And when I signed up and I agreed to, I thought, you know what, I'll give it a shot for 1 year. What the heck? I did make my money back within 2.5, 3 weeks. So I kind of went, this is maybe worth it. But all those other sites didn't actually exist. They had now amalgamated into one voices.com. I guess it's worth it. I make my money back quite quickly. So ROI is good for me. I've had a couple of news releases. I've done a podcast, all things that, were great to start me out. Whether I'll continue at that level, I'm not sure, because as you get more and more clientele, you stop auditioning for as much.
I want to point out, I'm sorry, Bev. I want to point out a myth on voices.com Platinum. I'll address Voice 123 Platinum also, but Bev and David, you know this as well. A lot of people think voices.com Platinum actually gives you some kind of a booking advantage over other talent. It doesn't. You get priority in the search listings. As Bev said, you get the press releases and other little bells and whistles, but really what you're paying for is priority in the search listings. So that does lead to more private invitations and more direct bookings off of the contact info on your website, on your Voices site, if you're a paying member. But you don't get any booking advantage whatsoever. You will see the same auditions the same way that a premium talent sees them. So I've heard that bandied about a lot. There is no advantage. On Voice 123, it's different. On Voice 123, if you pay for Platinum, which is $5,000 a year, $4,950, you do get a distinct booking advantage, which is they turn off SmartCast and you see everything that comes in the door the moment it's posted. You have more or less a Voices.com experience, but without having to deal with all of the other talent immediately sending in auditions. And that's worth its weight in gold if you're a competitive talent, no doubt about it.
JS,
that's how I booked my Asian female job, was because SmartCast was turned off. Yeah. And look, you know what? The reality, and then I'll throw it back to Dan. The reality of it is, with regard to these higher price points that you pay for the platinum memberships, okay, you may get more invitations, you may get more. The reality is, if you suck you're still not going to book. And let's all be perfectly clear and frank about this. These pay-to-plays are businesses that are in business to make money. We
As
are
opposed
there.
to the businesses that are out there to lose money.
Yeah, exactly.
Of which there are many.
There are many.
I just want to say part of my reality is some of this, but quite frankly, I read things on Facebook or whatever, and I do national spots and things, and I was doing one, and I'm in the studio, and it was running long, and they were looking for copy changes, and I was waiting for 20 minutes, and I said, I have an idea, guys. And the producer hit the talkback button, and he said, thank you, talent. We're the ones being paid to have the ideas today. Just hang in there. So when I hear people saying things like, oh, I had 55 clients get back to me today and tell me I'm the best thing since sliced white bread, I kind of deal with it because mostly what I hear is, for a fat guy, you don't sweat much, JS. And honestly, if I had $1 for every time I was unavailable for a booking and they said, that's okay, and they just went to number 2 on the list, or I was booked because number 1 was busy, this is more my reality. I just want to say, with regards to pay-to-plays or casting or marketing or whatever, what was that? Are you?
No, I'm talking to George. You go right ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. But I don't think that the voiceover industry is a voiceover industry. I think what J. Michael Collins does, or what Bev, or what any of you guys do, is probably related to what I do, because we both use microphones and we record ourselves and so forth. But there's a lot of differences. So when you look at these sites, each one has within it all kinds of different people that are looking to hire. And they do it in all different ways, and they communicate in all different sorts of ways. And depending on who you are and what your strengths are, I have done almost 400, maybe more than 400 video games. That's a strength. I do characters for video games. It's a big thing to do. There's certain work that I would look for on a pay-to-play site, or wording maybe that somebody would use. And this is the whole thing. The marketing, it is one more tool. If you're somebody and it doesn't work for you, that doesn't mean it doesn't work for somebody else. It just means what you're doing right now, what you're looking for. Personally, I would rather have my head nailed on the floor than do an audiobook. That's because when I was doing audiobooks, I got paid like 10 grand a piece for them. I went to a professional recording studio. I had a director. I read for 3 or 4 hours, usually got a catered lunch. I mean, that was my world. It isn't anymore. I pat myself on the back for one thing, and that is for not being a prima donna and being able to move to voiceover 2.0, which is what I call it now. It is a different world right now. And for a lot of the people who are out there who used to work an hour or 2 a week and make a lot of money, yes, we are doing e-learning. We're doing ongoing work now. We're doing all sorts of other things because it has changed. It's a different world. But the things that haven't changed, that worked for me back then, that work now, reciprocity. You do for others, hopefully they do back for you. Advocacy, help people out there. Do what you can. Maybe you're new at this, but you can wash somebody's car. I don't know, but there's a way of developing. Seriously, that's it. You want to have people out there that say, "Hey, I like J.S. Gilbert. I want to work with him." Or he brings something to the table, that kind of thing. And those are sorts of things that I think that really transcend when it comes down to it. The thing about non-pay-to-play sites, going through your agent, try this one out for size. Okay, I work with ad agencies. There are $500 jobs that are going through the talent agents that have 2,000, 3,000, and 4,000 people auditioning for them. I kid you not. I worked with recently on one, and one agency alone submitted 280 auditions. One talent agency alone. Okay, so the next time I hear somebody say, "Oh, I don't like the pay-per-play sites because there's 50 or 60 people competing," wake up and smell the friggin' coffee, folks. Because there are a lot of people out there, good, bad, and indifferent, who are trying to get this work. And yes, there's a lot of crappy audio out there, and a lot of that crappy audio actually is being broadcast. I hear it every day. Is there anybody out there that gets hired to do a Toyota commercial that can say Toyota? I think.
JS, wait till you listen to the show later. You're gonna slap yourself in the head so hard you might just knock yourself out. But that was a good one.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to take a quick break here. This is a fascinating conversation, and I'm glad we carried this out for another week because it's.
Did I clip?
Just a bit. We'll be right back after this, along with a lot of your questions. So stay tuned.
You look frustrated.
I just can't get this studio to work.
You know, Dad, we can help.
With what?
Getting your studio running again.
Huh?
Well, for one thing, 48V is not lit up.
Dad, you have to turn on the phantom power.
What? Did I forget that?
Yeah, and your gain is all jacked up.
You know, George has toots for that.
And you totally sound better with the high-pass filter.
How do you know all this?
We watch EWABS every Monday night. You might just want to watch some of those past episodes. For you, start with episode 1.
But for now, back to Dan Leonard and George.
Learning never ends.
You continue to grow.
Edge Studio has grown. Pursue multiple disciplines in tandem and grow your career. We've added new courses in a new curriculum.
We picked the best coaches from the community of working voice actors.
A new technology division, engineering and consulting, led by George Whittam.
Follow your dream.
Sign up for advanced learning or register for an Introduction to Voice Acting or Foundation Studies program.
See it all now
at thenewedgestudio.com.
VO Studio Tech. Recording made simple.
Hi, I'm Peter McHugh.
This is Jim Tasker from Los Angeles, California.
Hi, this is Bill Ratner in Los Angeles.
Hi, this is Scott Rummel here in Yorba Linda, California.
Hi, my name is Rick Wasserman.
Hi, this is Tom Kane.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Marshall.
Hi, my name is Zurich.
Hi, I'm Mary McKittrick.
Randy Thomas chiming in.
Hi, this is Joe Szymanski.
Hey, this is Rick Robles.
Hi, my name is John Patrick Armstrong.
I was turned on to George by none other than Don LaFontaine, who always swore by his health.
George is absolutely awesome.
ISDN, Source Connect, Phone Patch, FTP, you name it, George has set it up.
It's really the best thing I've ever done for myself. I feel free, safe, fearless, like anything is possible in here.
Unless you like to look for opportunities to waste time, call George.
And he did all of that, long distance over the phone and the internet.
I'm very happy with George, and I cherish him.
Thanks, George. You make it easy.
Hey guys, this is Tom, also known as the voice of SpongeBob SquarePants, and you want to fill your ear holes and your eye holes with Dan and George and the East West Audio Body Shop. Ah! Meow! Snails like it too.
So then I turned the sauna down a lot lower, and I'm sorry.
That was such a fascinating.
Can I have my dollar back?
I was giving the other panelists lap dances during the break. As my way of saying, sorry, I was distorting my audio.
Yes, there's an app for that.
Yeah, there is. Anyway, we're talking about the pay-to-play networks and how they affect our business and how some of us have succeeded at them. But Bev, you wanted to talk a little bit about something that the X said last week about minimum stuff that you take. When you're going through all the auditions and like, that's below my budget. That's below my budget. She said she had a certain level. What are your thoughts on that? And of course, Bev is frozen because she's in Canada.
Yeah, that's right.
Blame Canada.
Blame Canada. You want to a snowman?
Go ahead, Bev.
Okay, she's back. She's back.
I know. It keeps saying I'm unstable. I know that.
You're in voiceover.
There's a lot of people that criticize the paid to plays because of the prices, and a lot of the jobs are very low. I know Melissa doesn't take on jobs that are less than a certain dollar value, which is a lot higher than my lowest job that I'll take. But I do believe that the paid to plays are a stepping stone. I don't think they're necessarily, I think maybe I don't disagree with you, J. Michael, that they're going to be, some superpower of voice paid to play sites, one site or whatever. But I do think that you're going to find the higher paying jobs on your own. You're through your repeat clients, through going through production houses, if you have an agent, that sort of thing. But it's up to us to make those rates. And you can do that even by auditioning for those lower rates, by bidding again what you think you're worth. But if it's a, $1 to $250 job, go closer to $2, and only do it if it's not a $25,000 project. Pick and choose, but don't not look at the smaller jobs just because they're a smaller value. Certainly not at my level. I'm not new.
Well, not anybody's. I mean, we talked during the break, Bev. And one of the things I said, I still work for $250. I've been doing this for 20 years, and the reason I do, if it's non-broadcast, if it's something that's going to take me 15, 20 minutes of my time at most, I'll do it. And I can't tell you how many times a $250 job off of a pay-to-play site has led to a conversation and has led to the client saying, hey, I've got 6 or 7 of these a month. Can you handle that? And, aggregate that out over a year, that's a $10,000 client. And you start doing a few of those off the pay-to-plays, and you start to see some real money just through online casting. So, I certainly think we need to draw some kind of a line in the sand on rates, but let's not be too aggressive, because you can pass up something that really is a tremendous opportunity.
I also want to say there's also been a discussion that if you don't like a rate,
overbid.
Certainly on voices.com, you can. No. Hello.
Hey Bev.
Oh, okay.
Hey Bev. I'm gonna have you do something. Just turn off your camera. You can click the third button to the bottom left. It's the camera button. And just turn it off, because we want to hear you. That's the most important thing. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, good. Now I can.
Much better.
Never mind. Okay. But I forget now what I was going to say. What was I saying? Help me.
Sorry.
You can bid over on voices.com. Yeah. There's no set rate, actually.
That's what I was going to say. If there's a job, and there have been instances where they have posted the same job on another site, and you see a much lower dollar value, you can call them. You can email them at support and say, hey, what's going on? They have quite a number of new staff that are still training, and I won't say they've made mistakes, but they've erred on the cautious side. They'll listen to you. They'll talk to you. Don't go onto their site and hit the report abuse, because that's not what that's for. But you can contact them, as well as you said, bid over budget. Don't stick to their guns. They have a lot of the lower jobs that don't get booked. Voice Realm has a thing where you can sign up for $55 jobs, and they email you directly. Here's your work for the day. Here's your work for the day. I don't do that, but you can at $55, and there's no question. Here's your work. They just direct book, which I just learned. So there's all kinds of ways to make a lower dollar value as your lowest standard, like you, J. Michael. A lot of people I hear, and it drives me crazy. Oh, I won't do anything for less than this. Well, if you're at that level of your career, maybe you don't need the paid to plays. But again, keep your free profile and your name, so you're searchable.
Well, also, self-evaluate and be honest about the product that you're producing. If you can back it up, you're going to get what you ask for. So I have no problem with somebody saying my minimum's 500 or my minimum's 1,000. If you can get that every single time and that fits your business plan, and you can fill a day with that kind of work, that's fantastic. For me, 250 is my minimum. Will I do broadcast for that? Generally, no, unless it's maybe radio local and not a major market. But non-broadcast work, an internal video that's going to live on one domain. By the way, one of the really good points out of the discussion last week was the talk about new media and the way that we're trying to reestablish pricing and take control of that a little bit. One of the things I've started doing is when I do any kind of web work, I have a domain limit. That's something that I've started doing. If you purchase my voice for a website, tell me how many domains you're going to use it on. Now, if it's 15 different sites within one domain, that counts as one to me. But if you're going to put it on 20 different web platforms, we're going to talk about a fee for each of those web platforms. If it's going to be YouTube pre-roll, if it's going to be Hulu, if it's going to be a streaming service, Twitter, Facebook, that's a whole different animal. And some of those things, whether you negotiate buyout or you actually start to work on negotiating cycles, that's a whole different animal that we, that was addressed very well last week. And I think some very salient points were made there. But find a minimum that you feel comfortable with, that you think is credible for a professional to charge, and stick with it and move that needle. The point is the needle should be moving forward in your career. My rates go up more or less every year, one way or the other. I usually send out notices in October to especially long form narration clients and corporate clients that rates are climbing in the new year. And I usually lose about 25% of them. But the 75% that decide to pay the new rates make up for more than I lost from the 25% and free up more time to chase better work. It's all about building a business.
Yeah.
May I'm not going to yell, but I promise. I've calmed down. My meds are kicking in now.
Good.
Okay. No, what I wanted to say was one of the things I think personally, I don't think there's really that much you can learn from somebody whose experiences are 25 years ago as far as what's going on now. It is a brave new world. But if you understand history, it's a very interesting thing. People will say, oh, well, this is something that used to pay a voice talent $800, and now it pays a voice talent $300. No. It used to pay a voice talent $800. It used to pay the studio $1,500. It used to pay an audio engineer. It used to pay a director. It used to pay music search fee. It used to pay this, that, and the other thing. So when you say I'm taking an $800 job and I'm doing it for $400, realistically, the person who was paying the bills before, whoever that client is, that was more like a $2,000 or $3,000 job. So I don't think that voice talent are very smart by not being business people and understanding that if you're taking a room in your house and you're turning it into a studio, guess what? You should really be paid for that studio. And if you're an audio engineer, you should be paid for that. And if you're making an investment in equipment, you should be paid for that. I have an ISDN line here. I generally prefer most of my ISDN sessions to be somewhere where they take care of me, where I'm a pampered voice talent. And they will still do that. But for quick things and other stuff, I use the one here. And I am almost always reimbursed for it. So the reason why I have all this like really expensive equipment here, well, now the heck with it, you don't need to see it. But it's because at some point it was requested for a job. Well, do you have a U87? No, but and it's been paid for by the clients. And I have insurance of every kind you can think of. And I pay professionals to do stuff for me. And that's all figured into my cost of doing business. So when you look at that kind of stuff, at a certain point, you say to yourself, I can't afford to do this work. And I just think it's important to kind of think of that when you start saying, oh, I'll do a $75 job or whatever. And yes, I do realize people have to start somewhere, but maybe that's not where to start.
Interesting. Well, why don't we get to some of the questions and some of the thoughts we have from the folks in our incredibly voluminous chat room. It's limited to 50, and we've hit the 50 point 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
Absolutely packed.
It's one of the very few shows that has pegged the meter on the chat room.
Yeah, and so we're thrilled to have you with us. The real Amy Fisher says, does J. Michael or anyone else still pay the escrow fee on voices.com? And what do they think about it being added automatically to our quotes? Do the clients know this? Jay?
I don't know what the clients know. That's a good question. I think we've already talked about how clients don't always know what's going on these sites. We know what's going on. I factor that 10% into my bid. And the number that I put in the client's total is reflective of the number that I want to see in my total. So, when I say 250 is my minimum now for clients for the, for voices.com, there are times I will put 250 in their total and they'll see 220s and I'll get 227 out of it. For professional services jobs, I'll always put 275. If I'm on the low end, I'll put 275 in their total and I'll clear the 250 on those jobs. It's something you factor in. Judge it on a job by job basis. It's 10%. At the end of the day, I do think the client should see a nice round number. I think if your bid is 274 or 486.37, that can look like you're nickel and diming a little bit. So factor the 10% in. It's there. And decide, what's appropriate in terms of your compensation. That's what that top line number is for.
Yeah. It's sort of like what JS was talking about, that there were all these different breakdowns in what the budget was, except that the site is taking a big chunk of it there. So that seems to be something a lot of people are concerned about, that because of the managed accounts, that a lot of the money is being taken off the top and not going to the talent, and the talent's the one that's doing all the work.
Yeah. So, there's some truth to that. And I think it is one area where we could use probably a little bit more transparency, but we know what the sure pay fee is, and that's 10%. So factor that into your bid and bid what you're worth.
Yeah, I will say we did invite somebody from the Pay to Play Networks, one of the owners, to come on and talk with us tonight, but they declined, and so but they certainly had the opportunity, and but we appreciate them talking to us about it. Next question, Devox asks, do any of the guests pay for a premium membership, and do you honestly pay full price?
Yes, full price, very full price.
Yes, full price on 1, 2, 3, and I think I'm grandfathered in about 500 under the rate on Voices from some years ago, but it's not a big discount.
I just joined Voice 123. I can't believe the difference since signing up, and they give me a bit of a break in Voices.com and charge me the U.S. money, not the Canadian equivalency of what the U.S. fund would be. So I actually pay a bit less.
Okay, she can do that.
Okay. Let's see here. Carol Spencer Morgan joining us all the way across the big pond in the Pacific Rim in Australia. So, JS, here's my question.
Yes.
JS, you were talking about a situation earlier. What did you say when in such a situation that you described? I can't remember exactly what the situation you were describing earlier.
Yeah.
I'm just reading this now. But
there were a few situations.
Yeah, he threw a few in there, but it was one of the early ones you were talking about.
I don't. I usually count on other people to pay attention to what I'm saying. When I'm working, I don't put the headphones on. I tell them, "Look, you're paying to listen to me. I'm not paying to listen to you." So,
I think once the chat room catches up, I guarantee Carol will.
I think maybe where the producer said, "You're the talent, keep quiet." What's your reaction to that?
Oh, I bet that was it.
I was making a lot of money, so I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." The funny thing is, it took them a half an hour to make the copy change, and it was exactly what I was going to suggest. So, but then there were other times when the clients do know that I've worked on the creative end, and they're very happy to have me come in and make suggestions and things like that. It really does run the gamut. And then again, if you're in Los Angeles and when you're working in LA, that's a totally different experience. New York talent have a totally different experience. People who do audiobooks, people who do, I know there was a guy, basically he was offered the opportunity to do bulk work for Comcast. I got offered it first. I turned him down. And if you heard what it was, it's ridiculously low. But he sat down and he figured it out. And the first year that he accepted the work, he netted over $100,000. He got to be at home. He had little kids. He even got work for his neighbors. His wife got to work, So you look at it. You look at these things as if they're a business. And I hate people that get into voiceover because they say, well, I can't get a job. That's why I'm doing voiceover. I have no marketable skills, so I might as well do voiceover.
Yeah, it's just talking, right? Anyway, what she was talking about, JS, was the one where
that's all we do is talk.
Yeah, where you were saying that they said we found somebody and it was the engineer in there. What did you say to them?
I said, "Oh, okay. Well, the next time you need an engineer, maybe you should hire me because I'm a voice talent." And I gave him a very dirty look and I left. And a couple of weeks later, there was a job where they said, "Yeah, we want you and you want you at that studio." And I said, "Would you tell the client that I really would prefer to work somewhere else because I'm not comfortable working in there?" And the client came back and said yes. And I kind of felt like, well, that was sort of my little getting even. But, you know, the audio engineers will say, "Well, what's wrong with us doing voiceover? You guys are all audio engineers now. They're closing down all the studios. We have no work." I don't know. You know, look, everybody's just trying to get work out there. It doesn't even matter what you're doing anymore. I went to an industry event. They do it every year. You walk in. "Hi, my name's JS. My name's Mary." "Oh, JS, what do you do?" Or "Mary, what do you do?" "I'm a makeup artist." "JS, what do you do?" "I'm a voiceover." Then Mary says, "Oh yeah, I do that too."
Yeah.
I invite clients to be on LinkedIn and I don't hear from them. And then 6 years later, they pop up and they accept my invitation on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And guess what? Now they're voice talent. Look, you know, every day that I get to do something creative and interesting or whatever, it's great. But I will tell you something. The work that I did 10, 15, 20 years ago, on the average, it was better work than I do now. It was higher quality work than I do now. I worked less to make more money than I do now. But that's not to say, "Oh, I'm going to, you know, go into retirement or, you know, or sit on the porch and whittle because this is the way the world has become." You know, you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you start all over again. And I'm constantly trying to reinvent myself. The older I get, the younger I try to sound. I'm doing kids' voices now for things, you know, but that's, you know, whatever you got to try and do. And I have to tell you, I have been to, I don't know how many workshops on management techniques and things like that and working with millennials. And the millennials that are taking over in the advertising and other industries look at things a lot differently. They don't have a respect for unions. They don't even know the unions. And the unions are not making headway as far as the internet is concerned. Nobody on the internet wants a union sticking their hands in there. And the unions, if you think that they merged SAG-AFTRA to become strong, no, they did it to keep from going broke. So this is the reality of things. I know there's a lot of spin going on out there. There are people selling books and programs and stuff for billions of dollars. Some of it's great, some of it's not. But this is a tough racket, just like everything else is a tough racket, you know? And to sit there and to say, "Oh, this is good and this is bad," not all the P2P sites are great. And some of the sites that you guys probably think are really good for you, I think are a ripoff for me, and probably vice versa. That's just the way it is. Maybe there's some that are a ripoff for everybody. We won't name names, but there's probably one. But, you know, just like all the talent agents, they're working hard. Think about how much work a talent agent has to do. And they have lobbied SAG-AFTRA for years to try and get more than 10%. I'd love for my agent to get 15 or 20%. Why not? They, you know, there's nothing wrong with that if they're working hard to get me work and they have to do more to do it. But, you know, and most people aren't even aware, but there's almost no talent agents that actually have an actual agreement with SAG-AFTRA. There's never been one that got changed.
Let me ask you something, JS. Is it a new thing? Oh, who's typing? It sounds like is that you, Bev?
Sorry.
That's all right. Just mute your mic. You're saying it's millennials doing this work now. So you're saying it's
not doing the work. The millennials are the ones that are hiring.
No, I'm sorry. Yes, hiring. So when you were doing this 20, 30 years ago, were the ones doing the hiring of that same age group?
Nope.
Or so is the reason that there's more millennials hiring now because they're the only ones that'll work for the rates that are being paid for hiring talent? Is that why?
No, I think it's a totally different. 25 years ago, if you walked into a business and you saw 20-year-olds, you'd say, okay, they're the juniors.
Yeah.
And you saw 30-year-olds and you'd say, okay, maybe that's lower management. And 35, 40-year-olds were upper management or lower execs. And the 50s and 50-year-olds, they were the people running the place.
Yeah.
It's not like that. I went to an event the other day and the chief marketing officer was speaking, was 24 years old. And then there was another, the C-suite people were all in their 20s. And it is a different mentality out there. And also somebody says, we can't afford to train them, but we can't afford not to train them. And I'm sorry, but when a person is hiring voice talent and they don't even know what good is,
yeah,
what is having excellence? So
I guess that's what I'm wondering. Like, if they're just not as experienced and not likely as good at that job, why are they the ones getting hired for those positions? Is that a way of saying that voiceover is not as important as it used to be in general?
We live in a world now where if you're over 40-year-old, and that's the perception that people have out there. And
it's so ironic though, because everybody says, "Hey, 40's the new, or 50's the new 40, 40's the new 30."
If you're in the corporate world and you lose your job when you're 45, try getting a new one.
Yeah.
When I moved to San Francisco, the average age
voiceover.
When I moved to San Francisco, the average age of the San Franciscan was 48 years old, and now it's 36. The average San Francisco. I mean, it's just the way that it is. Business is done differently now. If you grow up, I'm talking to a guy, he runs an emailing house. This is a mentality. Understand, because this is behind things. I do a lot of other stuff besides just voiceover. I'm a consultant. In social media and things
and
like
the dancing we talked about.
And I am a ripper. I'm going to be in the new. It's a Mountain Bike 6 actually. But what the heck was I just going to say? I derailed myself.
That's your problem. You're too old.
But the point JS brought up about millennials, and it's an interesting route that we're taking here. Something I've been talking about for a while now is this applies directly to how the voiceover business is changing. Millennials, JS, I mean, you've experienced this out there. They are much less interested in being advertised to than previous generations. They're not receptive to it. And one of the reasons I think we're seeing commercial rates go down in general across the board, not just on pay to play, is simply because commercials are proving less and less effective. And I think it is a part of this industry that we may need to come to terms with. I mean, TV is going away. TV viewership is down dramatically. Streaming services without commercials are extraordinarily popular. Radio, 10 years from now, we're going to have a lot of driverless cars out there. You think people are going to be listening to the radio? No, they're going to be on a mobile device watching something without commercials. I
remembered what I was going to say. So I don't mean to interrupt you, Jay.
Go ahead, please.
But a freemium business. I went to business school. We didn't study freemium. You know what freemium is? Yeah. You get a free account, and then if you really need the service, you pay. Well, the emailing house is a perfect example. I'm talking to a guy. He is a marketing director for a major emailing house. He gets a call from a guy. The guy has a free account with them. And he says, hey, your competition, you only allow me 250 names on my mailing list, and 3 times a month I can mail. Your competition's willing to give me a free account with 500 names, and I can mail to them 5 times. So if you can't match that, I'm going to have to take my business to them. He's threatening to take his free account to the competition. And I'm just saying, this is a different sort of a mentality that goes on out there, and I have a little trouble wrapping my head around it, but I do get to see how this all works in terms of decision making. And it could be Gen Y people or Gen X people or whatever too, that there's a lot of that happening. And even us older folks are certainly influenced heavily by the internet and all the forces and the new business models and things like that. So,
but JS, what about the people that are coming out of college, university, and they're in their early 20s, and they've grown up with a phone or an iPad or a tablet in their hand, making videos that are on the internet and looking fairly professional, whiteboard animation, explainer videos. They don't understand that back in the day, I mean, my father was an advertising executive. I'd go see a commercial. You're right. You rent the studio, the lighting, the tech, the makeup, before the money gets down to the talent. These guys girls come out with these little phones making, great videos and saying, well, I need a voice. I'll give you $100.
Yeah.
Because they just don't get it.
Well, it's not even so much that they just don't get it. It's that you can have crappy video, but if the content is important enough, if what that video is conveying is important enough, it will get millions of views. And so when the Blair Witch Project came out and everybody saw that, then that meant, oh, okay, we can take crappy video if it's cool enough or whatever, and enough people are going to see it. So this is to a large extent what's going on. It's not so important what the voice is sounding like, but if the information is important to it, if it's being conveyed properly. I hear people all the time out there that are doing podcasts that I think they're unlistenable. It's very hard for me to listen to them, but they have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that listen to them, and it's for the content. And I guess they're not judging the vocal quality.
Well, this is just the reality of where it is today, and everybody has the ability to produce their own videos, whether it be on a phone, a tablet. They have a Mac at home, so they're shooting, they're editing, and hey, they need a voice, and that's where your pay-to-plays come in for so many of these folks that have no other option as far as where to go. There is no real budget. There's low-paying work that's out there as a result of technology becoming cheaper and more available. That is just the way it is. People are used to crappy video and crappy audio. The whole, reality-based programming type thing. Again, that started with Blair Witch and shows that shoot the cinema verite style where there's a lot of motion. Cameras aren't locked down anymore. It's run and gun style. And a lot of that is unfortunately transferred over to the audio side of things. However, in the attempt to help a lot of these folks out, your pay-to-plays are there doing that, not just for them, obviously, but for anybody who needs.
Well, and it's not just low cost.
But even the talent agents are running auditions for jobs that are $1,000 national spot payoffs, or $500 jobs, or $250 jobs. I mean, I'm watching it happen across the board. I don't know if you want to put the blame on a pay-to-play site or combination thereof of bringing the price down. I think you're not doing yourself or them a favor. At the worst case scenario, somebody should just say, I don't think pay-to-play is for me, but to see them as an enemy, or anybody in this business as an enemy. Because when I was getting double scale, the guys that were getting scale were the enemy.
But I don't mean to cut you off, JS, but I mean, one message I don't think is getting across clear enough here is that there is still room, as David can attest, as Bev is starting to find out, and there are probably another dozen or 24 talent I can name off the top of my head on pay-to-play who can say the same thing. There is room for a premium market on these sites. We are not pricing it may not be what you made back in 20 years ago for local and regional spots, but there is room for a premium market for people to make six-figure incomes just off of online casting. There are enough of us doing it that it's there. And I don't think that's going to go away. I think there's a little too much panic. What we need to preserve the rates and believe in what we do. And remember that that people will pay for quality at the end of the day.
Well, then you have to worry about TTS HTML.
Let's do predictions, Dan. What do you think?
Yeah.
Text-to-speech will take away a good chunk of the e-learning and long-form business that's out there, and I predict that will happen within 18 to 36 months.
That's going to be the bottom, like the bottom end stuff, just like the way, orchestral.
Not so much just the bottom end. The bottom end going. Yeah.
Well, it's like, go watch a low end film, a video where the orchestra is synthesized, the technology is getting there. Can you imagine buying?
I'll ask you guys a quick question and the chat room. Okay. I thought my hearing wasn't as good because when I watch television shows that are made in the last few years, I have trouble hearing. But then when I go to watch MeTV and I watch shows that were made in the 60s and 70s, I can hear everything. And what's going on is there is less care and quality going on to the production. Even things that are making that cost hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to produce. Some of these, crime dramas and things like that are not cheap. And I'll have to rewind it and play it over again in order to hear something that somebody said. As a producer, I used to have 20 people crews. Now I go out and I'm lucky if they give me a makeup artist for 2 hours. So it's really a very, very, very different world out there.
Yeah.
And we adjust however we need to adjust.
Yep. All righty. Well, we've been running around with this for a good hour and a half.
Well, we got to get everybody else's predictions. 30-second predictions. 30 seconds. Bev, your turn. Do you have a feeling about any predictions for what we're doing next in voiceover? I'll unmute your mic for you so you don't have to worry about it. Go.
I have no.
We're fighting over the mute button. You go ahead.
No, I didn't touch anything.
Okay.
I really don't know. I'm terrified that e-learning and that type of thing's going to disappear because that is a lot of my bread and butter. I'll just probably have to work more hours in a day. I hope not. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't been in the industry long enough to know how much it's changed and where it's going yet.
Okay. You'll be the first to find out.
Yeah.
David, do you have any predictions?
I think that a lot of the work, I know that I do, and a lot of us folks on Pay to Plays do, which I really consider to be the front lines. We're in the trenches, and a lot of that e-learning stuff, that will continue to be there and will probably continue to grow. As people who work for corporations and have to do e-learning courses to re-up or refresh, whatever it is, they'll have access to it on mobile devices. It'll be easier, more friendly. That work will continue to grow. Commercial work, I see continuing to shrink. I don't know what the next stage is going to be as far as advertising to the Gen, whatever it is, Gen Y, Z, I don't even know anymore. It's all about disruptive advertising. Where VO is going to fit into that, I'm not sure. I know it'll fit in, at least I hope it'll fit in. It's all about disrupting these people to try and sell them something at this point.
Yep. J. Michael Collins, you get the last word.
I'll leave you with a little dark cloud and a big silver lining. I think 5 years from now, there are going to be a lot fewer people, in fact, maybe none, making seven figures in this business who weren't celebrities to begin with. But I think there are going to be a lot more people making healthy six-figure incomes doing this as corporate narration, e-learning and training narration. Look at video games and animation as those fields continue to grow. Those are the next stars. Go to one of these conferences and see Tara Strong or Dave Fennoy and the people that line up, to get their autograph and would be happy to pay for it if they asked. There are parts of this business that are booming and that are going to continue to grow. So the great expansion of the middle in voiceover will continue. The very high-end stuff, it may go the way of the dodo, but that's the nature of a lot of businesses these days.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. I've done 400 video games together. They have paid me less than my best commercial. And when people out there are running workshops that say how to make money doing video games, it's generally per video game. You're lucky if you're making maybe $1,500.
Wait 10 years when there are no more commercials.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. A subject for another day. Well, I'd like to thank our fantastic panel here for continuing this discussion. J. Michael Collins, David Kaplan, J.S. Gilbert, one of a kind, and Bev Standing for joining us tonight and pushing this conversation along. And it's been very educational and eye-opening, and a lot of people are tuning in, and we're getting a lot of agreement tonight, which is just great. So thanks for being with us.
We could probably do 10 more of these.
Probably. Well,
but they'd be better without me.
And me.
All righty. We'll be right back to wrap things up right after this.
VoiceOver Extra, the voiceover industry's online news, education, and resource center 24/7. Hundreds, probably thousands of free how-to articles for voiceover success, ranging from home studio to voice acting to business. A free voiceover industry directory, calendar of industry events, resource links, a store, and much more. Bi-monthly webinars on all topics of voiceover, free subscriptions to newsletters, reports, announcements, daily news, and features at voiceoverextra.com.
And now back to the only webcast done with 2 cans, 2 geeks, and a string. East West Audio Body Shop, with George Whittam on his end in the West and Dan Leonard in the East.
Welcome back to EWABS. We were expecting you, but we still didn't bake a cake. Here's Dan and George.
You look frustrated.
I just can't get this studio to work.
You know, Dad, we can help.
With what?
Getting your studio running again.
Huh?
You're watching East West Audio Body Shop with Dan Leonard in the East and George Whittam in the West. They're nice guys, but every time I'm there, they never let me make water. So I'm going to go make water right now. I'm a grown man.
Whence came these two radiant celestial brothers united for an instant as they crossed the stratosphere of our starry window? One from the east and one from the west.
Very good.
All righty. Well, this one's run on for a while tonight, George, but fascinating discussion. And we want to thank our guests again for all of that. Next week, so as I move up in the show notes, who we have on next week? Next week, you can't beat this. We're going to have our Audio Masters Roundtable, our favorite folks talking. We'll get back to the basis of East West Audio Body Shop, which is home studio tech. And so make sure you join us. And probably Cliff Zellman and Uncle Roy and maybe a couple of special guests in there as well. On June 22nd, we're going to have an audiobooks roundtable with Ann Richardson, Karen Cummins, Carolyn Craig from Post Hypnotic Press, and hopefully a couple other special guests there. So we'll talk a little bit about audiobooks. And on June 29th, Scott Burns, who's a voiceover coach with Pat Fraley, and some know his voice from the Mario Brothers games. So, mamma mia. Anyway, and then July 6th is going to be the final EWABS fan roundtable. And we'll have a bunch of great people on with that. And if you want to do a shout out for us, George, we're inviting people.
Yes.
If you've loved EWABS and you can't wait for the new show to come on in August, we'd love to hear from you and tell us what you like about us. And
we want shout outs, but more importantly, we want you to help promote that fan roundtable by sending in a video of you saying, I'm Fred Franklin and I'm in Chocolaw, California. And we just want you to send those in. And that way we can slap together this super killer, awesome promo with everybody who's going to be on the Hangout. Right. And that would be a lot of fun too. So send them in any format that you can muster, as long as it's digital, to ewabshop@gmail.com.
Yeah, don't send it on Super 8. I mean, we can do the Super 8, but it's not as easy.
Yeah.
If anyone still has a Super 8 camera and can get the film processed. Anyway, so that's coming up on July 6th, and then we're going to be gone for the rest of July. And in August 6th, I think, is going to be our first show back in the new digs.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I've been handed this note by a producer. It says, all of the opinions of tonight's panelists are their own and do not reflect those of the producers of East West Audio Body Shop, nor its sponsors.
Everybody clear on that?
I was supposed to read that last week, but
well,
we went crazy.
I said, well, you could just splice it into the one from last week.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. Also, thanks to our donors of the week, Eric Aragoni. I think we just called this the Eric Aragoni announcement of donors of the week.
Yeah, I know.
Amy Fisher, Shelley Avellino, voiceovers, Diana Birdsall, a bunch of other people. Folks, thank you so much. The transition's costing us a few bucks, and if you can help us make that work for us, that would be a big help.
David Smith, the Amadors, Yvonne Schwemmer, Jeffrey Scott Chambers, Evan Coulter. You guys rock.
You guys absolutely rock.
Thank you.
NarratorHelper.com.
NarratorHelper.com. Still doing her thing. If you're stuck doing an audiobook and or you just really want to get it, put your foot in the water and you just don't want to go it alone, then you want to check out NarratorHelper.com. Amy will walk you through the post process, and she does it. She has a great workflow, and the mastering is perfect. Maybe because I set up the mastering.
Maybe that's
and trained her. But it's really good stuff. Anyway, NarratorHelper.com.
Alrighty. And of course, you can always, if you miss a show, you can always watch it on YouTube and the podcast on Stitcher Radio, iTunes, ewabs.podbean.com as well. And of course, we have to thank our fantastic sponsors, Harlan Hogan, Edge Studio, your fine employer's voiceover extra for helping provide the uninterrupted live stream and bandwidth. And, well, that's going to do it for us tonight. Of course, I'd like to thank our wives for the obvious and the dogs for participating tonight. And lots of other people that were apparently coming in. Our crack producer, Kathy. I don't know why I keep calling her our crack producer.
And Kathy, because she doesn't go by Kathy.
Yeah. Catherine Currendon, Anthony Gettig for doing a great job in the chat room tonight.
Yeah.
Shelley Avellino when he's not around. Jack DeGolia for doing the show notes. I think he's still doing the notes from last week because it was
He's still catching up.
Yeah, and Lee Penny for being Lee Penny. And by the way, we got a new Mugman tonight. So a lot of you couldn't get it last week because George had a problem getting it. This week we're going to show Dollarland. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And I think our guests will probably stick around with us. So we'll have a little bit of an after show and then we can start swearing and stuff like that. Anyway, that's all for this week. I'm Dan Leonard, for the time being still in the East.
And I'm George Woodham, staying out here in the West.
And together we're still East-West Audio Body Shop. Have a great night, everybody. Enjoy Mugman. We'll be back in a little bit.
Cheers.
All right, I felt so bad. I just
don't.
don't.
The guards were like, "Stop touching
Thanks,
the
Jazz.
chickens." I like the little chickens, though. They were good.
Yeah, let's start at the beginning.
It's me, It's me, It's me, It's me, Mugman. I remember a dollar store being there. Oh well. Is it getting darker around here? Sunshine? Sunshine? This place looks...
I've seen some things, man, but I've never seen anything like this. Ah!
Maybe I should get Pimenta.
Hi, Mugman.
How much did you hear?
All of it.
Oh, well then, let's go. This place is weird.
Wow, these prices are really cheap. Cheap, like little chickens.
Well,
cheap,
I
cheap.
mean, it is a dollar store.
I went to this farm once, and there were all these little chickens. Cheap, cheap. And then the guards were like, "Stop touching the chickens." I like the little chickens, though. They were good little chickens. Cheap, 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 cheap. Mugman? Mugman, where'd you... Mugman?
Ooh, look at this. Funny animal. I don't get it.
Ooh, a little chicken. Cheap, cheap, cheap. Yeah, I don't get it either.
Acoustical sealant? What's this stuff for?
Oh, that's for acoustical isolation and soundproof booths.
Well then. Giorgio and friend. Subtle. Hey, wait a second. Hey, Pimenta, here's something for your knockoff collection.
Oh my gosh, Mugman, you remembered I like things like this? That's so sweet of you. Buddy!
Pimenta, I think we should get out of here.
Mugman?
Pimenta, were we already... Pimenta? How do I get out of here? Wait a second. Pimenta bought something. Okay, I have to admit, that is a pretty genius marketing move. Oh, Pimenta, am I glad to see you? Well, yeah, let's not talk about this.